Let's talk about how to make sure that our requests satisfy the Google Ads requirements in terms of assets. Here, you can see a detail about the minimum and maximum number of assets in an asset group for each asset type. For instance, an asset group for a Performance Max campaign needs to have at least 3 headline text assets, one of which must have at most 15 characters. Generally speaking, though, we recommend having as many assets as possible, not just because it gives your ads more variety, but especially because it gives more inputs to Google AI to learn about your business and optimize your campaign accordingly. For this reason, even if you apply everything that Laura talked about in her reporting session and find out that one of your assets is not performing optimally in ads, we recommend not removing it from your asset groups, as it will still be used by Google AI as an input. Unless, of course, if you are already at the maximum number of assets and you plan to replace the one that you're removing right away. So while we recommend getting as close as possible to the upper limit, trying to create an asset group that is outside of these ranges will lead to an error indicating which of the requirements your asset group is not satisfying. For instance, if your asset group has less than 3 headline text assets, you will receive a not enough headline asset error. And if your asset group has enough description text assets, but none of them is under 60 characters, you will receive a short description required error. However, this is not exactly necessarily always the case. There is an exception to these requirements. If you are creating a Performance Max campaign for online sales with a product feed, also known as a Performance Max campaign for retail, the requirements are slightly different. First of all, you must populate the shopping setting field of your campaign with a few important details such as your Merchant Center account ID and a feed label. Then, you don't necessarily need to add assets, with a detail that we will discuss in a minute. In addition, each asset group in a retail campaign must have a valid product partition tree associated with it at the time of creation. You can even use a single node tree that includes all product in your Merchant Center feed. So you may be wondering, how do I build a product partition tree? You do that by using Asset Group Listing Group Filters, or AGLGF, for those who, like me, never seem to be able to pronounce the full name correctly, to select which products should be included in your asset groups. Remember, the operation to create Asset Group Listing Group Filters must be in the same request as the operation to create the associated asset group. Devin went into great detail on AGLGFs in his asset group session, so I recommend you watch his session if you haven't already to learn more about product partitioning. So now, remember that we said that Performance Max for retail campaigns don't necessarily need to have all the required assets that standard Performance Max campaigns need. Here is the detail that you need to keep in mind. When you're working with Performance Max for retail, you can create assetless asset groups and let Google Ads create the required assets from the Google Merchant Center account that was specified in the campaign shopping setting, retrieving assets like product names, descriptions, and images. However, the fact that you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. In fact, providing assets other than the product-related ones that are automatically created from the linked Google Merchant Center account can help maximize the reach of your Performance Max for retail campaigns across all Google Ads surfaces. So, what's the detail I was just mentioning then? It's that you can add your own assets to an assetless Performance Max campaign for online sales with a product feed. And it's generally a good idea to do so, because it will also provide more inputs to Google AI to create successful ads. However, your assets still need to comply with the asset requirements that we've just seen. At least 3 headlines, at least 1 log headline, and so on and so forth. So you can go entirely assetless then, or you have to meet all the asset requirements. There's no in-between where you just provide a few assets.